Is Gotham Knights as good as Arkham Knight, and are these games even comparable in the slightest? Let's get right into it. At its core, Gotham Knights has a really interesting design philosophy that interests me as someone that's really interested in game design. The crimes feel randomly placed, but not randomly crafted. Every encounter feels like it's purposefully placed in a way that makes sense, and the level design on the places you go to do these crimes is actually incredible. The open world in general feels pretty alive. There's lots of things to go and find and do, and reasons to run around in the night when you have nothing else to be doing. Now, to really break it down, we need to talk about what kind of game Gotham Knights even is, and in my opinion, it's an RPG game first and foremost with a focus on the co-op experience. I've noticed that this game is getting quite a lot of flack online because it's being compared to these two games quite a lot, when in actuality, I think it should actually be compared to these two games. You see, these are games that are actually in the same genre as Gotham Knights, and I think that if you like these games, you'll probably really enjoy what Gotham Knights has to offer. Does Gotham Knights have some kind of bad UI and some spongy combat? Yeah, but so do these games, and they're pretty fun anyway. I find myself enjoying the core gameplay loop enough so that I'm not mad when I'm running around just punching guys in the face. It's a good time. What can I say? I like beating people up in video games. It's fun. Sue me. But I do actually have things about the game that I dislike. Nothing is perfect, especially Gotham Knights, so let's get into the things that I specifically would change about Gotham Knights if I had the opportunity to. The materials and crafting stuff in Gotham Knights, with the exception of Nth Metal, all seem pretty useless. I don't even know what any of these icons are except for the Nth Metal one. It's the only one that holds any value to me. I understand that these are all required to craft certain things, but I've never had to go out of my way to obtain any of them because of the way that the game is laid out. I feel so rewarded by just going to explore things that I end up with way more of all of these other crafting materials than I could ever need. And maybe if you play the game a little differently than I did, then you would have to go out and grind for materials, but I never ran into that. And of course, the thing that everyone's talking about, the performance is pretty bad. It runs at 30 FPS if I'm lucky. In my opinion, on a next-gen console, 60 FPS should be the standard, and yet 30 FPS is hard to maintain for this game, which is really heartbreaking. It is worth mentioning that they are supporting the game with patches pretty regularly that are supposed to be improving the stability. I am crashing a little more often than I used to, but I have noticed frame improvements, so hopefully this improves in the future even more. And that segues me pretty nicely into talking about the traversal, which is where I have the most frames issues, in fact. I will say that the movement is at least not boring, and every character having their own unique traversal method is a really cool concept. It just falls a little flat, and the frame rate issues are a big problem. And if you didn't know, the traversal mechanic is locked behind some missions that you have to do, which are admittedly really easy, and you just go out and play as those characters and stop some crimes, which is the core gameplay loop anyway, so it's just kind of going to happen, but you have to at least play every character to unlock their movement ability. But again, it's not hard to do, and I think it's a fine mechanic to have in there. It adds some replayability, which this game did kind of need. Now, admittedly, some of these traversal mechanics are a little bit goofy, such as the Fortnite glider and the ghostly fart jumps for some reason, but both of those are actually pretty fun. And then you have the glide mechanic, which is a little bit clunky and clearly inspired by Arkham Knight. This is the only time that I'm going to make a valid Arkham Knight comparison, because I think this is the only time it's even slightly warranted. Obviously, the gliding isn't as polished and as fun as it is in Arkham Knight, but that's because it's not the main method of traversal in this game. And I guess you could argue that the Batmobile is in Arkham Knight, but they had two methods in Arkham Knight that they really focused on, and many more in this game that they kind of spread their focus on, which makes it a little bit clunkier, and that's a shame, but it is true. However, the glide and Robin's teleportation ability are actually interesting for a totally different reason, and that is stealth takedowns. Using both of those traversal methods and how easy they are to control, you can get some really interesting stealth takedowns off that characters like Red Hood aren't able to accomplish. It adds some really interesting, unique mechanics to how each character plays, even in combat, which is conveniently my next topic. Like I mentioned, every character has small things that make them unique in every combat encounter, and it means that every level is kind of tailored towards a specific character's playstyle. And I honestly almost urge you to try out every character and figure out who you like and maybe stick with them for a little while. However, definitely do keep an open mind and maybe try to figure out what character would be good for a certain level before you go do it, because it will come into play in more ways than I had initially thought. And that's one of the really beautiful things about this game, in my opinion, is that it's totally open and you can play it in any way that you want, and you can follow the bonus objectives and do that room totally stealthy, or you can ignore it and run in guns blazing and shoot them to death. I really do think that the stealth is interesting, especially if you're playing Robin or Batgirl. It's so much easier. And if you're playing someone like Red Hood, you're going to stay at a distance. If you're playing someone like Nightwing, you're going to be flashing around and doing flips and shit on people's heads. Everyone is so unique and fun, and it really does promote replayability by just having different ways to explore the world and fight things and stealth things. Like, it's just a totally different experience depending on what night you pick. and that's really fun. Because at the end of the day, it is still the same experience, and you can do all of the same things as any of the characters, they just have different specialties, and that's super, super cool. And now we get to the thing that this game, I think, does the absolute best, but still has its drawbacks, and that's co-op. When you are in someone's world, or someone is in your world, you can both run around the open world and punch things and get experience, and it shares between both players, regardless of how close you are. The untethered co-op experience is truly incredible. It's such a unique and interesting game mechanic that I think more games should look at what Gotham Knights has done in that aspect and take inspiration from it and do this thing cooler, more interesting, better, whatever you put a twist on it. It could be really cool if more games started doing stuff like that. The untethered co-op is truly such a unique mechanic. It's so neat. I've never had anything quite like this experience where I could be punching a guy in an alleyway and Robin could jump down from the top of the alleyway and take out the other guy that was about to shoot me in the head and save my ass. Like, it's such a unique experience. I urge you to play it for yourself. And game developers out there, I urge you to take a look at it and take inspiration and, you know, add it to games that you might not have thought deserved something like this or could handle something like this. Just be creative with this kind of thing because it's super cool, and I think it really could be the future if applied correctly. And you can play pretty much the entire game with a co-op partner, which makes it such an interesting and unique co-op experience, and something that I truly have never felt from a video game before. I've never felt this much of a connection to my co-op partner. It's just so very cool. Even in the game's end credits, if you played the side missions, they will show you the person that you played those side missions with in your credits, regardless of if they're different people or not. It's such an interesting idea. Best credits in video games, probably. And one thing that I actually forgot to mention about the co-op is that you get this really cool screen at the end of every night where it shows you how you did in comparison to your co-op partner, which adds this fun little layer of competitiveness to your gameplay. It's just cute and fun, and I really like it. Let's talk about the story. Batman is a notoriously big character in DC Comics, and for good reason. He's a heavy hitter, he sells things, he's cool. And if you like Batman the character, you'll probably like this game. It tells a really, really cool Bat family story that is centered on the characters in Batman's life. This version of the DC universe feels so incredibly alive, with so many Easter eggs, with just like Star City being referenced on building names, to direct references to characters like Clark Kent sending you an email. It's so fucking cool. The theme of family is present throughout the entire game, so if you like found family stuff, this will be right up your alley. The story had me in tears at multiple points. It's such an emotionally impactful story with all of these characters losing a father figure. It's very interesting. The stuff that they do with Batman, even if it is limited, is incredible. The voice actor for Bruce does some audio logs in the game that are just absolutely incredible, and I urge you to at least go listen to them if you aren't going to play the game. They're totally worth listening to as just a standalone Batman story that is pretty short.
Nightwing is the better version of what Batman was meant to be. That because of Dick Grayson, Bruce Wayne became a better man. I'd tell my son that I miss him. I'll tell him the next time he comes back. He doesn't need me bothering him. He doesn't need me at all.
I really like that one. Woo! Okay, I'm gonna need one more. I will say that the game maybe ends a little suddenly, but I don't mind that. It just left me wanting more. And overall, the story is an incredibly human story about emotions and family, and really just something that I love out of comic books. It's one of the reasons that I fell in love with Batman comics in the first place, because the presence of family is so clear, and this is a great interpretation of that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you think the game's fucking garbage, if you think the game's great, comment it down below. It helps the algorithm. I appreciate it a lot. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe maybe. I make lots of content about Gotham Knights. Lately, it's been a lot of shorts. It's been really fun, and we're streaming the game quite often over on twitch.tv/SyncroChamp, so go check that out. And I'll see you guys in the future with whatever I make next. See you later. Bye.